Welcome. I am Chitsuga Chinda, and today we shall be talking about food. This is a political conversation, mind you, and food is our topic. Food is a foundational topic. Food is extremely important. None of us came into this world as full adults. None of us came into this world with grown bodies. No, we came tiny, we came small, we came weak. We fed ourselves, we ate, we were fed, and then we, over time, accumulated the body that we have. So, this body that we have is made of food. Hence, they say, dust you shall come, dust you shall return, because the food itself is grown from the earth. That is the primary source, whether it is meat or crops that you are eating, it is grown from the earth. Now, on the issue of food, Sun Tzu, in his work, The Art of War, made a quote, and I regard that quote to be essential, an essential guide in any food policy for the nation, because there has to be a coherent food policy for the nation. People have to eat, and that quote is, food is the heaven of the people. Is it? It is. Where there is food, there is ease. It doesn't mean that it is without issues or struggles, but society is better off when people are not hungry, because when people are hungry, most people tend to lose their sense of reason, their sense of rationality. Most people tend to become desperate, and society becomes a more dangerous place than it already is. So, for food, the main policy there is that we have to, as much as we can, grow our own food. You see what happened during COVID 19 in the year 2020, when international borders, different nations shut their borders, so grains were not coming in, imported foods were not coming in. But fortunately for Nigeria, at the time that event occurred, we had surplus of domestic production. So we were able to feed ourselves without importation. Well, I fed and I learned that our borders were closed, that foods were not being imported either from America or Europe, but we ate because we grew our own crops. So that is the basic policy for food, that we in Nigeria, we in Rivers State, wherever you find yourself, you grow your own food. Now, there are certain crops that I favor, not because it is better than the others, but I favor for simple reasons. Preservation, it is easy to preserve. It is also easy to crop. So one of such crop is yam. I believe there has to be some kind of, this is a voluntary work that involves engaging the public. Growing of yam. Encourage private growth of yam. Now yams are grown in bags, sacks. So even within a city, yams can be grown. If you can encourage every household to plant and therefore harvest at least 10 tubers of yam, that is 10 cement bags. They usually use cement bags or bako sacks of yam. It goes a long way for the nation. It deflates price of commodity. It ensures that food is available in excess, and yam is easy to preserve. Another such crop that is so favored is egusi. Egusi, why? Because it is a natural source of protein, and a rich one at that. Though I hear it is acidic, there are other options, but these are two primary options being suggested to the public. Yam and egusi, they are perennial crops. They are crops that we already have proficiency in growing. If at all we are not the best at growing it, we just need to improve our capacity, our ability. Second aspect of the whole food issue is food processing. I mentioned the egusi, how we can preserve it. Egusi is not difficult to preserve. Where you usually have challenges with preservation are perishables. So I read a report last year, I believe last year, that over 75%, over 75% of our crop yield, of our harvest, goes to waste. Not 30%, which in fact is a high number. Not 20%, which is also a ridiculously high percentage, but rather over 75%. And in this same country, people are starving, yet food is wasting. That is an issue. So food preservation is important, and one of the main ways of preserving food, I frown against chemical preservation because it is the cause. To my mind, it is the cause of a lot of the incidences of cancer being recorded. So we need to develop a cold chain. We need to develop cold chain infrastructure. What do I mean by cold chain? By cold chain, I am referring to cold rooms. You know that type they store meat? Industrial cold rooms, that type that you store tomato, perishables generally, can last there, vegetables can last there, dairy, meat, fish can last there. We are a country of 200 million people, and I can confidently state that at least in the south, especially in the south of Nigeria, majority of us have never drank fresh milk. All our lives, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, never drank fresh milk. You may say, oh, milk is not necessarily our diet, but we are taking things that we call milk. Powdered milk. To the point where people will argue, based on the ignorance, that that is better than fresh milk coming from the cattle. I once had the argument, and I had to question my colleague a while back then, a female. I asked if the child she's breastfeeding is taking powdered milk. I didn't mean to offer any offense, but basically, if it is dried milk, powdered milk that comes out of her mammary gland to feed her child. And then she got the point. There are reports that those who can or sell tomato pastes are actually selling fruit pulp blended with flavor, tomato flavor and color, and is being marketed as tomato paste, and we are buying it and consuming it, and nobody is blinking because people are making money and paying taxes. Therefore, the general population can go to hell. Government is failing in that regard. And that has to change, because the food that we eat is fundamental to the health of the nation. So our ability to preserve the food available to us, our ability to add value, that is, process the food available to us within the bounds of reason. I'm not talking about peeling yam and putting it in a nylon bag. That's madness. Peeling orange and putting it in a plastic container. That's not what I'm referring to. By processing, I'm referring to products like tomato, which are perishable, which can be turned to puree. Said puree, giving cold chain infrastructure, will be available year-round for the public. A situation where a standard feature in our markets is this said cold chain infrastructure, that is this ginormous industrial refrigerator. When I say ginormous, it makes it sound like it's so expensive, but frankly speaking, this project is small project for a local government. That is to equip a market with cold chain infrastructure. It's a small project for a local government. It's a smaller project for a state government. Well, for the federal government, you already know. If we invest in our food processing, production and processing, then we come to a point where we add value. Adding value means that we are creating jobs. It means that we are boosting the productive sector of the economy. Currently, Nigeria is being powered by the service industry. Banks, restaurants, hotels, we aren't really producing, save for the oil we extracted from the Niger Delta. We aren't really producing, manufacturing. So the services from banks and the likes does not add to the GMP. May add to GDP, but not GMP. And that, my friend, is what creates jobs. And jobs are the things that we very much need. Availability of jobs means people get paid a decent living wage. That said wage affords them the ability to live a decent life, to afford proper meal, to look healthy, to take care of their family. There are other possibilities. If we do what is proper for us, the possibility of, I did mention milk, fish. If you do not know, I have read reports that our international waters are being, or rather is being taken over by the Chinese. Their fishing vessel, you know how they did in the Indian Ocean and their neighboring oceans. They've come down to our West African coast. They are catching our fish, our own resources. And what are we doing about it? Who's turning a blind eye to it? Are they selling it back to us in dollars, our own fish from our own waters? That's an issue. A situation where our leadership keeps quiet or collects pay and keeps quiet to such economic devastation being visited on us will over time, as it is evident, lead to an economic crisis. The situation in Nigeria now is that everybody is talking, or so many people are talking about money. There's this obsession about money, mad obsession. It wasn't like this when I was younger. People always wanted money for as long as I remember, myself included. But the obsession, if a man were this obsessed with sex, he would say he has a mental issue. If a man were as obsessed with sex as the Nigerian population is obsessed with money, you would say he has a mental issue. He has a deficiency. But this is the situation we have found ourselves. Everybody is shouting about how money is wonderful, money this, money that. The value attached to money is gone, is eroded. Our little girls are prostitutes. Our boys are fraudsters and thieves. Our policemen are bigger thieves. But let's focus on food. Because the little girls, the fraudster boys, and the policemen will still have to eat. So today the focus is on ensuring that food is available, affordable, and is of proper quality to the Nigerian public. The only way you can do this is either you start your own farm and eat solely from there, or you impress it on the government of the day. The government of the day says it will not listen. Fortunately for you, you have the choice to make a decision and choose who becomes the government of the day. On that note, I wish to remind you of the continuous voters registration currently ongoing. It began sometime last week. I believe the 18th or so. It doesn't matter. Now you can head to the portal. I will drop the link in the comments. And the services available, the services that INEC offers is new voter pre-registration. That is, if you have not registered before, you're a fresh voter, you go there and pre-register, and they will assign you a future date where you go to their office physically and do the proper registration. Voter information review, that is also available there. You can also locate your registration centers. You can transfer to a new polling unit. You can update your information. Perhaps you've gotten married, change your surname, change address, change your location. You need to reflect that change in the voters register. That option is also available on the continuous voters registration portal. Is scheduled for the collection of your PVC, uncollected PVC. I've collected my own. So you go there, you click on that, and you figure out how you collect your PVC. Then you also apply for the replacement of lost or damaged PVC. So that is basically the services available on the continuous voters registration exercise. You wish to eat good food and want it to be reflected in our economy, in your stomach. Listen, you say you want to play stomach infrastructure. Play it to the foundation. The foundation is not 5,000 naira. It is not a bag of rice. The foundation is the process of cropping, that is cultivating, harvesting, preserving, and processing and distributing that food that has been grown. For so long we have left it to chance. But it is important for your sake and for the sake of your children and your family that we take a deliberate step in handling the issue. Thank you for patiently listening to me. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.